and welcome to Agile World. Hello, Carl. It's been a couple of weeks since I've seen you in person. Last time I saw you was with a glass of champers in a hot tub, if that doesn't sound too weird.
Yeah. No, and there were other people there as well.
Yeah, it wasn't just the two of us.
Does that sound weird?
No.
It does.
I think people
Sounds
know it's
interesting.
It was a friend's weekend away, so
absolutely
Sabrina
beautiful.
got to meet my friends and think, oh my goodness. So
I made friends. I've made extra friends actually, so I'm not sure if I need you anymore, Carl. Only joking. You are still.
I'm going away now.
You're still my partner.
So we have a guest today. Saul, would you like to introduce yourself and kind of describe your Agile journey, how you got into it and what you're doing now and where you think it's going?
Thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Fox, and especially with Agile World, which I think that you guys are trying to do such a great piece of work to the world to try and maybe encourage more people into all this, agility movement, if you like.
Yeah.
Right. My name is Saul. I'm originally from Colombia. I've been in the UK for nearly probably 20 years. My background is quite technical. I started bachelor's in computer science and then a master's in business and IT. I was a developer in my kind of previous life, and then a business analyst, and then maybe 14 years ago, I started into my management journey. So that puts me into agility roughly, I'm going to say 12 years ago. Yeah. And that's when I met all these agile ways of working. So I've been working with that, and I'm highly passionate about why agility is, the nice kind of way of doing things. But I consider myself also quite pragmatic and not massively puristic into the agility. And maybe as part of this conversation, we can talk about maybe views that you guys might have on that, and some views that I've got on very pragmatic people and maybe very, to the book people as well. My journey with agility has been kind of all the time from a kind of Scrum Mastery perspective, project management, program management, all the time trying to not only promote, adopt, propagate agility, but also I have found very interesting the different interpretations that you might have on agility and maybe the misconceptions and how preconceptions might lead into different maybe bad habits. I've been working with various set of organizations, public and private. So in some pretty large and some pretty small. Right now I'm with a large bank. But before that, I was with a startup, an American startup. Before that, I was with one of the largest public sector organizations here in the UK, and so forth and so on. And every time I've been with them for, like a region of 2 years, meaning that I have seen quite a different degree of agile implementations. That's in a kind of pretty quick nutshell the journey. I'm sure that we can get into more deeper conversations on this, but that's what I am right now.
I love the way that you describe it. It's almost like there are different flavors and different ways and different journeys of actually moving towards agility, and there's different styles as well. And I think that's what makes agile or agility such a fabulous way of working, because it is so flexible. And I loved how you actually described it. Is there a particular area that you find quite exciting when it comes to agility?
The mindset part, Sabrina, is probably what I find the most exciting part. Maybe because I relate personally as well. I just see agility applicable to anything, literally anything in life, starting personal, frankly. I just find it that anything to do, my own sort of maybe way to embrace it is with an experimentation mindset, experimentation hat, to just, I know we have mentioned this many times in the Agile world, try, fail, fast, and fail and learn and all that. That's cool. But in my opinion, you can go a little bit beyond, in my opinion, into the experimenting part, into proving or disproving hypotheses, and then seeing what works and then learning from that. For me, that has been in the recent years even more useful than the fail fast and all that, because I think that it puts a little bit of like a reference point as to where you might be going to. Many times we have preconceptions, ideas, like food habits or sort of exercising that might work for you or not. And many times I think that we treat that in a waterfall way, as in we need to do an 18 months plan, and then I'm gonna be so fit. But really, all that you need to do is to do a push-up today and see what happens, and then switch maybe one of your steaks for a little bit more salad, and then feel. And I think that feeling, and that experimentation thing is, but I think it's all to do with the mindset part, and it's what I believe is the foundational part. That many times, not to say that the tooling obviously is very important because it can unleash your many things, your velocity, your resiliency, etc. And also the methodology. I mean, it's it's like choosing your favorite child. You kind of can't, but at the same time, if you don't have love, which is the mindset, it's gonna fall apart.
So I think I love what you're saying here, because you're right. The one thing that agility's brought out is, you think years ago when we were probably children, you fail at something or do something wrong, you almost kind of feel like you're going to get told off. You feel like it's a bad thing, it's a negative thing. But you're right in what you're saying, that agility over the years has kind of turned out, do you know what? Failing isn't a negative, it's now a positive. Do you know what? Let's try this out, 100%. And it may not work.
But this goes back to moving Agile from being engineering to being science.
Yeah.
Science is about experimentation. You don't say you're going to do something and then just do it. You do lots of experiments until you find the right experiments that proves that you can do it. And I think there's a bit here where we need to kind of move away from being process driven engineers and think more like scientists, to go like, we know the parameters of what we're trying to achieve, and we kind of know some pieces, but we don't know the right recipe yet. And just like a chemist trying to form the right recipe with all the tubes and Bunsen burners and various different devices, we're still trying to work out what the right recipe is, and we have to do that in each instance. There's not a single panacea that works for every organization.
What do you guys? First of all, like, fully, obviously, it resonates. Now, one of the things that I find interesting many times is that when I have these conversations with some other people, rarely you find someone that just negates this, they not. But when it's about the implementation, many people, it's like there is a conditioning, right? And that conditioning is constraining.
Stopped thinking and start doing. Well, wait a minute. Shouldn't we think while we're doing? Otherwise, if you drive a car without thinking while you're doing it, you're going to crash.
I always find it. So one of the analogies that I sometimes tend to use is, this is like you hiring a personal trainer for you to get fitter. That's the coach, essentially. And they are going to tell you, look, okay, you're going to get fitter. Ideally, wake up at 5 a.m. or 6, whatever, go for a wee run, increase your salads and all that. But it's not until, it's so easy to find the answers to the questions many times. You're a Google click from finding, what you need to do. The problem is doing it, coming back to the mindset part. So many times, I know that, but then tomorrow, 5 a.m., snooze. I just want my burger and my pizza, because I'm conditioned. It's just easier.
I can relate to that. I mean, a lot of people know I'm absolutely crazy about the gym, to the extent I've got one in my house. And I also understand the struggles you can have. I've had personal trainers. I've still got one that I lean on occasion, where they can show you the route. They can show you what good will happen, but it is down to you have to have a mindset change to make those behavioral changes in not just your eating, but how you are physically. It takes 21 to 30 days. There was actually a scientific paper on this. It takes 21 to 31 days to change a habit. It takes 21 to 31 days to create a new habit. You have to go through that pain until you start seeing those results. And that's exactly the same with agility. There's multiple different ways of implementing it. There's no one size fits all. That's where the beauty of agility is, that it's so flexible. You can make it flex with your business, but you have to be prepared to change, take it in small steps, fail when necessary, but learn in a positive way of what can we change. And there's no stopping point. There's never an end date. And I get this a lot as a coach. You probably get this a lot as a transformationist, the same as Carl. There's never an end date. You need to constantly improve, change, see what you're doing, because of how the world is, it changes so fast.
So Paul, Saul, in your 12 years of agility, what have you seen change? What has moved as far as you're concerned?
Let me answer the question in two different ways. I have seen people embracing it and thinking I mean, honestly, it's like such a great vibe and feeling, saying, I cannot believe that I've been working in the way that I have been working for the last 10, 20, 30 years. This is amazing. And obviously that's like one of those little epiphanies that you have, and it's like I'm not the only crazy one, it's like, definitely this is great, like really, like and promoting very like healthy ways of working, and all the leadership, good values, and all that. It's great. So in like the first attempt for me to answer the question is seeing the people embracing the change and providing pretty positive feedback to say, forget about your Jiras and forget about all that. It's more the teamy spirit that you get around this that via continuous improvement unleashes innovation. It's just fantastic. Now that's probably more intangible, but you feel it. You can definitely feel it. And you can maybe measure in some way with, like satisfaction from employees or retention and all that. The other kind of tangible stuff that I've seen is the typical matrix of, you increase your pace, as in, more velocity, so you are delivering more value. Not only you are delivering quicker, but you are delivering more value, as in you are learning from the customer, you're getting the feedback loops, and obviously that means that it's giving you an edge for competing with some more organizations, or even with across teams. I remember being on a team in one of the banks here in the UK, where we were part of a program. We were 3 teams that we were like partners, actually a very good working relationship. But the second that you will see your velocities and all that, it does. It's one of those that sometimes the tooling might drive the behaviors instead of the other way around. I'm sure you guys have seen that as well. That is very interesting, and they kind of just reinvent. They just fit each other quite nicely. So I remember that as well, where it becomes contagious, the ways of working, but also the tangibles that you get out of that. That's just one quick example that I remember. I probably can remember some others, but those were just quite nice to see when you see that. It's rare to see that on a waterfall or kind of more traditional way of working. There are so many archetypes that you get out of that, and I don't tend to put black and white. That I think there are grays, and there are things from the waterfall ways of working that I think they are pretty reusable, and they are appropriate in certain cases. But it's like you tend to see more that kind of maybe thrive in that kind of mentality and vibe when you are working on an agile manner.
You can normally tell when you walk into a business that has flourished very well with agility, because there's like a buzz, there's excitement. And my personal view, that's because of the collaboration. It's because everybody is collaborating. When you go into businesses where a lot of it is pushed top down and people have been dictated to, you don't get as much of a buzz because everybody, all the employees, everybody working towards the goals for the business aren't necessarily included in the decision making or being as active. And you do almost feel it's vibrant. And I get it when you turn around and say that you can see a big difference within teams when they are getting it, when that penny kind of drops. And sometimes it can take time, and we have to be quite calm because it does take people sometimes longer to be able to change the mindset or be able to understand the ability of these changes. Is not just improvements for a business, it's not just improvements for delivery, but it's improvements for them and their health, but also their way of working. And it is absolutely beautiful. But what's the most difficult? And you don't have to name any names, or we're not interested in that. But what's probably the most difficult scenario you've been when you've gone in to support or run a transformation?
Well,
if you're allowed to say.
Yeah, I can't mention people I kind of want, but I can't. No, the reason I'm smiling is because I was just going to sort of ask you a question and come back to a previous point, but it's so connected to. I can answer probably the two things, with the same stone. Right. Let me park the question and come back to one thing that you mentioned before. Sabrina, you mentioned before when we were starting, you were alluding, I think, to the fear factor. The fear factor, the fear element you get on a, culturally, as we know, is such a massive constraint on people that obviously is limiting any sort of improvements. It's even probably creating unconsciousness on people, I think. It's promoting unconsciousness, essentially. It's difficult to open that little closet and get into awareness. And then obviously the first step is to be aware of an issue. And then if you're aware, then you can improve. But if the fear part, I just feel that many times is if not the one, maybe at least one of the main components that is restricting people. And I think, and I'll get to the question in a second, but I think that's the reason why many times you feel that vibe that you were talking about. Because when you remove the fear and you are empowering people, on the contrary, then obviously what you start getting is that people feel, they feel listened. And that, like the second that they get that, they many of them, they feel like they are being recognized, that they are adding value, that obviously the human brain works in such a way that is, we most of us, if not all, we like problem solving. We feel good about it. We get a challenge and then within seconds, the brain goes quite quickly to, these are the potential steps to be able to overcome all this. So all this is, we are talking about feelings here. It's emotions. And emotions that you get are pretty positive. Hence, you create that vibe. Now, all this is kind of the background and context of now coming back to the question. In one of the public sector organizations that I worked, this is the example whereby you hire the personal trainer, but you are expecting the personal trainer to do the push-ups for you and to eat the salads for you. Absolutely the same. So on this organization, some of us, we came as consultants with a sort of mandate, I suppose, to do some transformation, to get the organization into a more DevOpsy way. But the fear that people had, I would suggest that any organization that is looking to make an investment into transformation, don't waste your money unless that you have already started or you are willing to get help with the mindset and the culture part. You get the fear and you get consultants and you get money and you get, cloud and all that. It's going to get you so much. It's not, honestly, it's not going to give you much. And I think that in regards to your question, I can specifically remember that experience whereby I thought, well, many people recognize the word to be great and all that, but the second that you're trying to go into the transformation and coming back to your numbers of the change and the numbers of 21 and 28, what I have seen is that You want change? Yeah, probably 21, 30 days. You want transformation, which is not reversible change. You're looking for longer, a point in time where you are not coming back. To get into that stage, you need to have, you will need to have removed the fear, or at least massively mitigated that. And this definitely didn't happen in this place.
And fear is actually one of the hardest emotions. We've all experienced it, and everybody experiences fear in multiple different ways, and how people get over fear. And as transformationists, the one thing we have to do is gain trust that people to kind of trust in you, that you not only know what you're doing, but you've also got their back, and you're also there to not just guide them, but also support them. And you're right, fear, one of the hardest behaviors that we all naturally, instinctively just crawl into ourselves when that happens. No,
that's quite an interesting point, isn't it? Because how do you, well, I've got my own views, but how do you gain trust? Because you can't just get to our place and say, trust me. Like, why will you? Why would you, or why will I?
Me personally, when I go into an organization, I'm a very open and honest person. I'm a very kind person. I'm relatable, the same as Carl. And having really good listening skills, and actually being very interested in the now, the next steps, and how we're going to get there. But being able to collaborate and communicate with multiple different people, and actually taking that moment in time to actually listen and understand, you always get that one person that you get warned about. They are, or watch this person because they're the moaners. They would be the person I would make a beeline for, because they are being outspoken, but obviously not being listened to. And they've got gold dust 9 times out of 10. But my personal, and there's multiple different ways, and it's different for different people, but taken that time to sit down and listen and ask questions to get an overall understanding of what the current situation is, but also an understanding of where people want to be. Once they see that you are invested in them as people, then that's how you gain trust. But it's a similar scenario when you're meet someone in the pub the first time, or you're handing over your credit card details. Someone, you've got to gain some trust in that way. Carl, I can see you going.
No, you said earlier everyone's afraid, and I don't think
not everyone's
is.
afraid. I don't think it was that terminology that's used. Not everybody is afraid. Some people are like, come on, let's take this on.
Yeah, there's a lot of people like that, and that's kind of how I am. I understand the concept of fear because it's about self-preservation. That's what fear is really useful for, to make sure you don't put your hand in a fire and things like that. But actually, there is an operating power in lots of organizations of fear to make sure people comply. And actually, those are the organizations that will never gain an agile mindset. And actually dealing with the whole bullying cultures and fear cultures in organizations is fundamental to releasing the true potential of that organization in their people, because people who feel put upon and feel limited by an organization will never serve it. They'll never see it as a higher calling than just doing a job. And releasing the true potential in the mindset of agility is actually about getting beyond being a child in the playground and actually living up to potential as an adult. Sorry, something I'm quite passionate about, because I was talking to someone recently about being bullied at work. I've been bullied by a CEO. He turned around and tried to bully me in public in front of everyone. And I said, that's not acceptable. And he looked genuinely, it looked like I just slapped him in the face, which I did verbally, because I'm not going to submit to someone else's inadequacies in order to validate their behaviors, because I won't. It's just wrong.
At the end of the day, we're 3 minds with 3 opinions, and I love the fact that you actually threw that in. This has been absolutely amazing. We definitely need to carry on the conversation. It would be really good to get into the DevOps at some point with yourself. So if you're happy to come back, that would be absolutely great. But
100%.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you.